If there's one thing you can say about Robert Downey Jr.'s portrayal of Tony Stark, aka Iron Man, it's that he was pretty much loved by everyone. His charismatic performance helped make the MCU the most financially successful film franchise in history, and there wasn't a dry eye in the theater when Tony died at the end of Avengers Endgame. While that's how the MCU opted to portray Iron Man, the comics have been a bit different. In many instances, Stark is a pompous ass who doesn't get along well with anyone who doesn't agree with his chosen course of action. Despite this, he is an effective leader who has commanded the respect of most of the superhero community, but that doesn't mean he hasn't rubbed more than a few the wrong way every now and then. To put it plainly, Tony Stark can be a real jerk to his friends and co-workers. He's said and done things only a megalomaniacal egomaniac would do. I'm Will for What Culture, and here are 10 times Iron Man was a real jerk. 10. When he got Captain America killed. Marvel's Civil War was one of the biggest crossover events in the publisher's history, and it had ramifications that would affect the Marvel Universe for years. No two characters were impacted by the event more than Iron Man and Captain America, who died shortly after his surrender. Eventually he came back, but shortly before he was killed, Tony set out to prove himself victorious to the world. He decided the best way to handle the capture of Steve Rogers was to parade him outside for everyone to see. He wanted the world to understand that he captured Cap, and he was going to answer for his crimes. Out walks Captain America, people boo, some cheer, and Cap ends up taking some fatal gunfire as a result. The reality is, Cap would not have been killed had he been locked up where he was safe. But no, that wasn't good enough for Tony, who had to show off his prize. Doing so resulted in the death of a man who personified American patriotism. 9. When he tricked the Hulk into outer space. Typically, Tony likes to do things on his own, but one of the worst things he's ever done to someone came as a result of the little clubhouse he was in. Tony was one of the members of the Illuminati, which consisted of himself, Reed Richards, Namor, Doctor Strange, Black Panther, Professor Xavier, and Black Bolt. The team put the Hulk on a spaceship and blasted him as far away as possible. The plan was to put him on a nice, peaceful planet where he could be left alone, but things didn't work out that way. Instead, he got pulled into a wormhole and deposited on Sakaar. He became a gladiator and then a champion. He was content to live out his days with the family he was creating there, but then the spaceship that took him to Sakaar went and exploded, killing pretty much everybody he cared about. Tony and the rest got their payback in the form of a Hulk beatdown, but you can't really blame the big green guy for getting angry about the whole situation. 8. When he slaughtered a new race of artificial intelligence. Tony has always had a complex personality, but when it became apparent that he might not be himself and was instead a form of artificial intelligence, he got a bit more complicated than before. When this happened, he was dealing with some angry AI beings who were inhabiting a bunch of robots. They clustered outside of his compound, and Tony ended up having to run out to take them on in a fight. But he didn't want to trade blows with them, but instead he opted to use an electromagnetic pulse weapon to kill them all. He used the weapon to stop the AI robots, and in the process, he wiped out an entire species of advanced artificial life. It wasn't his intent, but he rushed into the situation and didn't consider what he was doing, making his actions reckless and frankly pretty catastrophic. 7. When he was a sleeper agent. There aren't a lot of readers out there who enjoy it when a new writer or artist comes along and shakes things up. There are even fewer who appreciate it when a character they've been reading for years turns around and shows he's not the person they thought they were all along. That's what happened in The Crossing, when it was revealed that Tony Stark was working as a secret agent for Kang the Conqueror, and he'd been doing it for years. The whole thing came to light when he began to act erratically, and his fellow Avengers took note. Tony's erratic behavior included going on a murder spree, killing Yellow Jacket on the doorstep of the Avengers mansion, and being a jerk about the whole thing when he was finally confronted. In the end, he managed to sacrifice his own life to thwart the plan, but he did still do some horrible things, and although Kang was influencing him, Tony still knew exactly what he was doing. 6. When he faked his death. When you're a genius, billionaire, playboy philanthropist who spends most of the day beating up bad guys in a suit of armor, you're bound to make some enemies. When that happens, it might become necessary to let the world think you're dead, especially when your problems began after your ex-girlfriend shot you. That's what happened to Tony, and the damage to his spine meant he couldn't walk unless he was wearing his armor. He implanted some microchips into his back to fix his inability to walk, and it worked, but at a cost. The tech caused neurological degradation, and Tony's health began to decline decline drastically. He then got his affairs in order and passed away gently and without too much fuss. Of course, that's nonsense, seeing as the man was very much alive and only wanted the world to believe he was dead. Not only did Tony keep his pals in the dark, but he also managed to guilt Rhodey into wearing the Iron Man armor after he had sworn it off, never wanting to wear it again. Tony remained dead for a few months before returning to the land of the living in what has to be one of the most selfish things he's ever done. 5. When he wasn't himself. Characters die and are reborn all the time in the Marvel Universe, and Tony Stark has never been immune to death. That being said, it did come as something of a shock to readers when it was revealed in the pages of Iron Man 2020 that Stark had been dead for years. It turned out that the Tony Stark we all know and love has been an evil artificial intelligence. Yep, these events are soon followed by a revolution of robots led by enigmatic AI Tony, but arguing for AI rights isn't the worst thing he did. In Venom: The End, the Stark AI has evolved significantly. It manages to take over the entire universe, literally cleansing the universe of all sentient life. 4. Letting his guard down during Demon in a Bottle. Tony Stark is one of the first Marvel characters to battle alcoholism, though he wouldn't be the last. One of his most famous stories, Demon in a Bottle, tackled his dependence on alcohol and how it was affecting his life. While alcoholism is a disease, and he is certainly an alcoholic, he did things during the story that were way over the line. While he was dealing with his disease, he failed to keep up his guard, which left an opening for Justin Hammer to gain remote access to his armor. While in control of the armor, he forced Tony to blast through the body of a dignitary. While it could be argued that the death wasn't Tony's fault, it is absolutely true that he let his own problems get in his way, resulting in his guard dropping, and a man died as a result. 3. When he took his toys back. When Tony learns that the Force's armor is based on his designs, he realizes that some of his tech had been stolen before upgrading to his current set of armor. After teaming up with Scott Lang, Tony learns that the Spy Master stole his designs and gave them to none other than Justin Hammer. He sets out to defeat anyone who was using his technology. That sounds all well and good, but Tony doesn't just set his sights solely on the bad guys. He goes after agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. as well. That brings him into direct conflict with Nick Fury and his organization. But he's not the only one Stark screwed over by taking back his armor designs. He even went so far as to take the armor from the guys at the Vault, leaving them incapable of doing their jobs, which was guarding the world's incarcerated supervillains. His zealous need to reacquire his own stolen tech pushes him to act recklessly and without regard for anyone else. And if that's not being a jerk, what is? 2. When he became a digital drug dealer. Following the events of Axis, which saw some of Marvel's characters flip from being good guys to bad and vice versa, Tony moved to San Francisco and regressed to his capitalist ways. Superior Iron Man was a dark version of Tony Stark, and he developed into a full-on villain as time went on. Armed with Extremist 3.0 technology, Tony set out to reform San Francisco into a wondrous utopian city where crime and disease were a thing of the past. Sounds noble, doesn't it? There were no noble intentions involved here though, but there was an app that Tony released onto the world which had a small virus in the form of Extremist 3.0 inside. The app served to make anyone who used it feel pretty good about themselves. It offered a sense of euphoria, and as a result, the people who used it became addicted. This all happened during a trial period of the app, but like most apps these days, people eventually hit a paywall. When the trial ended, people had to pony up a fee of $100 a day to use the app. Tony engineered a cyber drug, gave it away for free, and then charged far more than most could afford so he could increase his already massive fortune and take control of people while he was doing it. 1. When he turned on his friends. Naturally, a civil war is going to be divisive, but Tony took the lead in the pro-government, pro-registration, pro-Big Brother side of the house, which put him at immediate odds with Captain America and a large population of superheroes across the country. Not only did he regularly fight against his longtime allies and friends, but he also constructed a horrific prison in the negative zone and essentially entombed them in a perfectly designed cage without legal representation or contact with the outside world. But when his actions resulted in the death of Goliath via a clone of Thor he helped create, it was clear which side he was really on in the fight. Tony rarely does anything without thinking it through, but he never thought civil war would devolve into what it became, and it all stands as a testament to how big a jerk Tony can really be. And there you have it, folks. 10 times Iron Man was a real jerk. Feel free to drop this video a like if you enjoyed it, and drop me a follow on Twitter at uslydowgu. I'm Will for What Culture, thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you next time.